Hey, everybody, and welcome to Crunching Your Growth, where we explore the strategies, tools, and stories that drive entrepreneurial success. I'm your host, Phil Masiello, and today we're diving into one of the most critical and often overlooked aspects of online business growth. That's optimizing your website for conversions and user experience. And so joining us, we have a guest, AJ Davis, a leading expert in conversion rate optimization, CRO, whatever you want to call it, and the founder of Experiment Zone. She's got a proven track record of helping businesses, startups to Fortune 500 companies, and she specializes in improving revenue through scientific approaches to website design, user experience. Former lead UX researcher for Google Optimize, making her uniquely qualified to share insights that can transform your digital experience. So, today in this episode this week, we're going to uncover the secrets to really turning clicks into conversions and the biggest mistakes businesses make with their websites, future of CRO in 2025 and beyond. And, whether you're an entrepreneur, a marketer, or simply looking to optimize your digital footprint, this is an episode you won't want to miss. So let's get started and learn how to transform a website into a growth engine with AJ Davis. AJ, welcome, and thanks for taking the time to come on.
Hey, Phil. Hey, everybody. So nice to be on today.
Thank you. So, AJ, give us a little background. Talk to us about, sort of what you've done in the past, how you got to where you are today, and why did you pick conversion rate optimization for sort of your path?
Yeah, I've always been kind of a data nerd, but I also want to know how that connects to real people and what's going on. So the kind of quick story of my background is I started my career as a UX researcher, which is purely on the qualitative side. I talked to thousands of people and observed how they use technology. And I found myself working on the Google Optimized product, as you mentioned in your intro. And what happened was most of the time you're kind of taking your blank slate, taking in what they're saying, kind of asking questions, and you're not involved at all in what's happening. And I found myself being involved. I would get off the calls and the research and think, wow, that sounds really cool. And so I dove into it both as a researcher, but then also as a practitioner, and made a small step over in my career from UX research and started applying all that knowledge in the context of CRO.
What's the Google Optimize platform, if for people that aren't familiar?
And it's not around anymore. So they sunset it about a year and a half ago, but it was a great tool, free for most people up until 5 experiments a month. And the problem it was solving was helping marketers conduct research on their website. So if you wanted to see if a blue button or a red button was more effective, the tool would give you point and click options for editing those things and then running the data and collecting everything you need to be able to answer those questions.
And that was a free Google product?
It was free for 5 tests a month. And then after that, you had to drive into the higher tier. But yeah, it was part of the Google Analytics suite.
Yeah, but it's gone.
It's gone. There are other tools out there, though, so we're not all hope is lost. But yeah, certainly not the Google suite right now.
Yeah, we use a few of them on some of the websites that we manage, and a lot with heat maps and things like that, and experiments. And I think one of the big ones we were using on Shopify sites, if I'm not mistaken, was Orange, something Orange. I don't remember what it's, but anyway.
Yeah,
there's a ton of them out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools for collecting the data itself. So the heat mapping tools like you're talking about, where you're able to see what people click on or what they scroll on. These optimization tools are kind of the next layer down. So those really help us execute, test, or kind of change 2 pieces of the design. But they're both great tools. It always surprises me getting into this world, just how deep you can get into understanding how people use your site.
Yeah.
It's not always clear as on the other side what's going on.
Yeah. It's true. So just talk a little bit about some of the conversion rate optimization basics. Like, what are you looking for, and what are you, sort of what's critical?
Yeah. I mean, for every website, you've got to start with communicating the very basics of your brand. So when I look at a new client or new person's website for the first time, I want to be able to answer without doing any work myself on the first screen. What is this website? Who is it for? And why should I care about this business for this? So the who, what, and why. And I would say about 80% of the sites are missing one of those, if not all 3.
Sure.
So basic low hanging fruit for everyone is make sure you tell people what you do and why you do it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's really, it's more than just your website and conversions. That's sort of your brand message.
Mhm.
And if you're not communicating that, I mean, you should be communicating it not only on your website but also on your ads. And I see it, we do a tremendous amount of advertising. And I was having this conversation today with someone, because I said, we don't take every client that comes to
Mm.
us, because if we can't help a client, we don't want them. And
Mhm.
it's not that we're trying to be mean and nasty. What we're saying is, if you can't communicate to us on the discovery call what your brand is
Mm.
and where you're better or different than your competition, then we can't help you. But we
Yeah.
don't help, like, we don't work with sellers for that reason. Like, it's just, there are people out there with a different mentality. They're just sellers, not
Mhm.
not just Amazon sellers, but they're just guys that put up websites and they'll have an aggregation of 1,000 items, 10,000 brands, whatever it is. And we can't help those folks, because there's nothing to communicate to a
Mm.
customer. There's nothing to communicate to a prospect in an ad, or for us, the way that we think anyway, because we only work with brands and we want to build brands. And so I was explaining that. And so many times we look and we can hear somebody tell us what the brand stands for. And then
Mhm.
you're looking at their website, or you're looking at the ads that they've been running, or you look at social media and you go, I didn't get that. I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't see that. It doesn't, it's not the same. So it's a good
Yeah,
point.
that gap is where that optimization comes in, right? Because I think a lot of companies know what they do and they can talk to you for a long time about like their perspective. Like we built this thing, it does this. It's a pair of shoes, right? But the big challenge is to know who your audience is and be able to speak in their words to convey how you're solving their problems. And I think sometimes we can, like founders will start with the problem and then solve it, but then still talk about the solution instead of coming back to that original problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually, I wrote a post about this not too long ago, about sometimes when you're communicating to a customer, like, we think we know what we're saying as
Mhm.
a founder, right? I know what I'm saying, and I know and the customer should get it. And sometimes they don't. And you can
Mhm.
write words all you want, but sometimes words are not enough. And I'll give you an example. We had a client who had they were in the business of sugar-free, sort of healthful, nutritious products. And they had a product that was a chocolate and nut-based spread, right?
Mhm.
And it was hard to get that across to people, what it was. And we made a very simple video showing, with their product being spread on a piece of toast,
Mhm.
and Nutella being spread on a piece of toast, because it was exactly the same thing. And then it was like, customers got it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's Nutella without the sugar and without the palm oil. I get it now. And so it's hard to say that, right? You can write that word all the time. You can write those words all the time on ads or
Mhm.
posts or whatever, but sometimes customers don't get it. And sometimes we find that video works better on a website to get across what the brand is all about.
Yeah, I think it's like a layered thing too. I think one of the other tips I like to give my clients are to ask your customers to describe your business to you. And so often we will say like, here's what it is. Does this match what you think of my business? But actually asking them like, how would you tell your colleague what I do? And the words that you hear back will sound like the words you say, but they won't be the same words. And so that gap can help you identify, do I need a video? Do I need some more copy? Do I need something else that's just going to simplify and help people really get it from the perspective of someone else who did get it?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Having your customers talk back to you about what they
Mhm.
experience. Yeah. Um, how have the trends evolved over the years in user experience? What do you think have been the shifts, and what do you see coming in 2025?
That's a great question. I think we tend to see the changes happen more on the side of like what people think are the basics and the standards for sites. Consumer change, like desires and needs, have remained pretty consistent, although their expectations have gone up.
Yeah.
So there's some data that's been out there for a while around like how many seconds someone will tolerate. And what we're seeing is people do need things to load quickly,
Oh
or they
yeah.
need to see the message right away. I think I would hold this idea out there that we don't have someone's attention for very long. And I think that the attention span, it's not so much that people's attention span has decreased. I think they've had more and more thrown at them, and maybe they're used to consuming things more quickly. And so we're having to like kind of balance, how do we get that message short and sweet and direct so people can make a decision to leave it or to keep with it. I think there's a lot of like specific interface things that come to mind about how people use things. I think most people could go to a website and remember how there was that left-hand navigation where you'd see every single page spelled out. And now you've got layered navigations. You put the most important things first, and it's okay if people can't find every single thing in your navigation. I think there's a lot of little things like that that we might take for granted. And maybe the thing I see more prevalently is that the templates come in such a standard way that people think they're best practice.
Yeah.
So something I'm very often advising companies is that's a good starting point, but we better measure whether that holds true for your customers or not. So you'll see those like at the top of a page, I'll call it the homepage hero, that section, that's the hero image. A lot of templates will have that auto scroll through like 5 to 10 different images. And again, we've tested if we just get the first image to not be the latest and greatest sale or our new collection line, but just an introduction to the brand, that often will outperform. It'll get more clicks than all 10 combined. And that may not be true for everyone, but it's in contrast to what people are saying are best practices.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I cannot stand the scrolling images. I especially on mobile. And so many people now, when you look at the bulk of website traffic, 80% or more is mobile. And so you've got to be cognizant of how your website's going to look on mobile. A lot of times everybody looks at it on desktop and they go, oh, this is a lovely site. And then you bring it to mobile and it's horrible. We had a client and they produced wall art for indoor and outdoor, customized. You could put names on it and things like that. And it was very high quality product. And they had 12 different color choices and 4 different sizes. So, and then they had, I think, well over 300 or 400 different choices. And it was so over the top that you ran into the paradox of choice, which is you have so many choices that you've basically taken away choice from the customer. And it was amazing what was happening on the site because you couldn't navigate it on a mobile device. And it was just too cumbersome. And so basically what was selling were the items that were put front and center, right on the homepage. Those were the ones that were selling all the time, or ones that we were running ads to and driving directly to that page. But even still, I said, if you just deleted 6 of your colors and 2 of your sizes, you'd probably be better off. And then let's start culling some of these. You don't need Christmas up year round. You don't need Halloween up year round. You don't need, all these specialty things, baseball or football. You put that up seasonally, and their sales went up when we started doing that, and they couldn't understand it. They fought us on the whole concept, but their sales went up after they actually did it because it was more directed at the customer. Customers could understand what they were looking at. So
yeah, that's a big theme we see is we always start by focusing attention, whether it's like, oh, we've got 5 choices for buttons to click here. Let's make it 1 and see what we want people to do instead of giving them so many choices. But the other one is, to your point, like how many products to choose from. It's very often with e-commerce companies, they've built a really strong set of products to address lots of needs in the market. And now the customer comes to the site and is like, I don't know which one's for me.
Yeah.
And so how do we design a customer experience so that it's just like going to a store where you'll have end caps that highlight specific things that we want them to notice. But if they know they need a specific thing, they can walk down the aisle and look on the bottom shelf.
Sure.
So I often kind of encourage folks who are in e-com to think about a physical store and how you can use that same sort of ideas around physical stores to direct attention and make it clear, like you go this way to get to the register. Let's do the same thing online.
Yeah. One of my first businesses, I built retail stores, and then we built they were food retail stores, and then we built an e-commerce site. This is way back in the beginning of e-commerce to sell food online. And we got acquired by a supermarket chain, and I had to go and work for the supermarket chain. It was a 2-year deal, and implementing, because nobody understood websites back then, and nobody had one, and so they acquired us for this website, and they wanted to make it their home shopping sort of. So I was doing that, but when I started, like you, I like data, and I started looking at and understanding the store, right? The average supermarket has over 100,000 SKUs in it. And it was amazing to me that there are, out of those 100,000 in the center store, forget about perishables on the perimeter, but just the center store is over 100,000 SKUs. And there are 50 SKUs on average in a supermarket that sell more than a case per store week. 50 items out of 100,000. So
That's a great data point.
a lot of those items
Yeah.
are just sitting there. And I used to sit there going, well, why do you have them? I mean, why don't you just, expand? Variety isn't necessarily. Costco gets great feedback from customers for having great variety, but yet they don't really when compared to a supermarket. They've got probably 10 things in the bakery department, whereas a supermarket's probably got 1,000, right? But they think Costco has better variety because it's not that they have more selection. They just have more of the item there to sell, right? Chocolate chip cookies stacked to the ceiling. It's great variety. I'm going to grab those. So it's amazing what variety and what numbers of product is. And I apply that same thing to e-commerce sites. In my mind, less is more, but you have to be more focused.
Yeah, I think more focused. I think things like shortcuts, like having a bestsellers or some sort of introduction collection too.
Yeah.
It's like walking into Costco, like, hey, everyone else is buying the chocolate chip cookies. You should look at this too. And rather than saying like, please choose from all the cookie options, anywhere. And you may end up getting people who are more sophisticated who could have a path in that journey that's like, reach out to us if you need something custom, or you add a category to the navigation like Christmas when it's Christmas time. I think a lot of people think of their website as this static, I build it once, I add products to it, but they don't really think of like, let me take stuff down, let me streamline and simplify it. So when you asked that question earlier about like, where do you start? I always start with simplification. I have yet to see a site where there's just critical pieces missing. It's almost always there's too much and we need to figure out what is the core thing we need people to do.
Yeah. We run into that problem as well because we have a lot of clients, and we say, you really want to change your website every 2 months, every month. We've got holidays, we've got Halloween, we've got Christmas, we've got, Black Friday. We want to change. And they think that we're just trying to beef up our invoicing, and that's not the case at all. We're trying to grow sales, and we're saying, you can't let your website just sit there and stagnate. Customers don't want it.
Customers will notice.
Yeah.
I'm shopping for Christmas presents, and I will notice if I'm looking at a site and they haven't done anything. There was a specific coffee company that I bought a gift from this year, and I noticed that their brand message didn't really change. They added this gift that was in the gifting section, but nothing changed. And it turned out like it didn't end up shipping. I couldn't connect with customer service afterward. And I thought I should have recognized that signal up front at how little attention they were paying their e-commerce channel.
Yeah.
Because you can't service me as a gift giver. They're not going to be someone who's going to pay attention to me in general.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's an excellent point. I need to use that. But it is amazing. The ones that do it well, in my opinion, are the beauty brands. In the ones that we work with anyway. They want to change it every month. They've got something new. And, early on, I founded a beauty brand, and we did that same thing because we didn't have like the width of items, right? We had probably, I think we had 12 or 15 items in our 15 SKUs at our height, but we turned that into all these different sets. This is your daytime set, your nighttime set. This is your, it solves this problem. And it really worked out well because we could sort of direct people to problem solution. And then we always change that banner. This is going back years, before there were a lot of the new things that are out there today. But we used to change that banner all the time, at least once a month, because and people enjoyed it, and it helped sales. Once we started getting into cosmetics, it became a whole different world, because cosmetics, you've got to have variety, you've got to have color, you've got to have all these
Mhm.
different pieces, and it gets a little overwhelming. But you're always constantly looking at it, going, okay, what should we get rid of? What should we have? What should we not have?
Mhm.
What should we focus on? So
Yeah, it makes me think of this. There's a thing I keep searching for and I have yet to find. So if anyone listening knows of this, please message me on LinkedIn. But I think about these gift sets, and I think one of the pain points I have, which probably a lot of working people have, is I want to be able to go to a website and purchase an entire outfit. Like I want to buy like these 5 things will all work together and it will fit in my suitcase. It'll be machine washable. It'll be look great on camera. Like, where do I find that? Because so far, everything I found is like, go to this website. People will come up with outfits. Now go see if they're even in stock. Okay, go find matchables. Oh, now see if they're in your size. And I think your example in the beauty space or skincare space is perfect, right? Just like we started, who is it for? Why would I do it? Right. Well, if I need a nighttime routine and I don't have one, it is all together bundled and it's one decision. It's
yeah,
not 10 decisions to try all these places and spend hours doing.
yeah, not saying this goes with this goes with this,
Mhm.
but I thought they were trying to do that. There were some of those online box fashion box
You
monthly
can hire someone
subscriptions.
to do it for you.
Yeah, some of
Yeah.
the monthly subscriptions that were doing it
Mhm.
in the beginning, but that never really took off, because they wound up turning themselves into just regular sites.
Yeah.
Uh, you
And
know,
I think there was a company I think called Capsule that would
hmm,
every item in their collection would work together, but it didn't function in my life the way that I was looking
yeah,
for. So if
yeah.
you're out there looking for a business idea, it's probably a tough one, but it might be worth something.
Yeah, fashion. We dabbled in fashion. It's not really our expertise. We did work with a couple of designers and early on, but it's so you have to. I think it's like nutraceuticals, and which is another space that we don't really work in, because you have to really understand it to be able to talk to the customer about it. And fashion is so specific, because you have, first of all, the returns are extremely high, because
Mm,
nobody trusts your sizing. So somebody will buy, if they're looking for a pair of jeans, they'll buy 4 different sizes. You ship them to them, they keep the one that they want, and then they send the other 3 back. Same thing with shoes, and
mhm,
it's just so specific. You really have to understand it. But I really liked some of the people we worked with, because they were very focused. One group just did wedding, and that's all they did was wedding. They didn't want to get into other types of gowns. Somebody else did leisure wear, and somebody else did active wear, and we were doing it in conjunction with shopping channel business, so that you get to sort of explain the story on the shopping channels, which is really what um, where we're heading today, in my opinion, because like, we started out in direct response TV, shopping channel business, and then we did a lot of television advertising. And today, social selling is really taking us back down that path. And we've been very fortunate in that we've been good at it, and we've gotten a lot of our brands focused on it, because I video, I sort of alluded to it before. Video, I think, tells the story better if you have the right person that's doing the
mhm.
right sort of script. You don't want to script it too much. You just want to give them the highlight points. But if you can do that, you can get across really well what your brand is all about, what you're selling, how you're selling it. And I think there's even applications on websites, and you're starting to see it more and more, in my opinion, from what we've seen, of people taking their UGC content, your user generated content, where the influencers are selling, and they're putting it on their homepage, and that sort of gets people to understand, or even on their product pages, gets people to understand the product, the use case. So
It's almost as if your those affiliates are really, or the subject matter, they're becoming like subject matter experts
yeah,
on your product.
yeah,
So they're out there, they're a trustworthy source, or they're like they've built trust within their audience. And we're trying to do the same, where we're trying to take the content, because the channel so far has been bring them to the website or bring them to the landing page to buy it or buy within social. And I think there exists this other path of yeah, I know this person and I follow them, but I also happen across your brand, and your brand can make the connection between it, not just from social to your brand. And so I think thinking about that whole ecosystem and how you represent those voices, whether it's through their content or having maybe dedicated landing pages that show that person like talking about your product, can be super impactful too. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to just see more and more of that stuff overlapping and meshing into singular content.
Yeah, I think words are dead. I think that, the concept of writing, static image ads with words,
Mm.
people, what I've seen, people just aren't reacting to it. And you can make fun ads, that get across your brand, get
Mm.
across your brand image, get across your messaging, and also help sell the product, especially when you have it backed up by micro influencers or influencers, modern influencers, whatever you want to call them, affiliates.
Yeah.
But I think you can make it more fun and entertaining and engaging. We're starting to see it on Amazon now. We're starting to see more video happening on Amazon, and we do a lot of connected TV advertising, with video. And I just think that those possibilities, it's just going to continue. Uh,
Mhm.
the thing that I worry about is these the people that are using AI and AI, um, bots to try and recreate that. There's a company
Mhm.
in Spain, for example, that created this AI persona, and she
Mhm.
goes out and sells. I'm sure that it worked for a couple of brands, but for a little while. But it's so
Mhm.
inauthentic, and it just doesn't. I just don't see that uh,
Mhm.
as having the same impact. But I do think that people are, you wind up, somebody latches onto something, next thing you know, it permeates everything, and then you have to sort of fight against it.
Yeah. What I was thinking about too with your comments about the images, like moving away from text into video, I I wonder if I think I have a hypothesis on this. I think that when we're in this sort of browsing phase of our shopping
Yeah,
versus the like ordering or it's time to buy, I suspect our needs for visuals are much, much higher, where we need to see it in motion. We need to maybe futuristically, we need to be able to like wear glasses that tell us like what brand our neighbors wearing when they walk by, right? But more embedded in our experiences of scrolling through Instagram, seeing a video, oh, what's in that? Who's wearing what, right? And then I think there's this moment of kind of shift into now I'm starting to really commit to buying something where some words do become really salient. And some of those things are like the name of the product or like the brand and what it is, who, what, where, like we talked about earlier, who, what, why. Um, but then I think of words like the word free shipping and the power we've seen of that in
yeah,
our A/B testing, and that hasn't gone away. It's like if you're not telling everyone everywhere that you can get your product fast and quick and free, you're you're going to have a lower conversion rate. So I'm curious to test that actually to see if if our needs for words earlier in that process is just much lower and we need to see it and experience it, and then as we get ready to hit the commit button we just need to see it in writing to say okay, I understand it. So
no, I think that's a good point. I think you're right. I think that you're never going to be able to take away the words on a product page, because you have to
mhm.
support what you're doing. And there are going to be people who want to see, in the food world, they want to see ingredients. In cosmetics world, they want to see the ingredients. So you're always going to have that, because you can't do that in video. I mean, you'd be sitting there with 2-hour long videos. So you so I think you're right, but I do think that early on in the journey, what we're seeing is, and the reason I say that is because when it comes to advertising, when it comes to running ads, I don't care what the platform is, video returns much higher than static images. Static images, it's almost, people just scroll past them unless you do
Yeah.
something, really, really eye popping, eye catching, and then people will stop. Maybe they'll read it, but even if they stop and look at it, they don't necessarily click. Whereas with a video, if it's interesting enough, and the video is interesting enough, they'll click.
Yeah. I think there's something to that. And I think about I think it was like the late 90s, this term banner blindness came up on the internet
Yeah,
because
yeah,
every single website you went on had a banner that flashed and told you to do something, right? And so it's like this is the next phase of maybe 5 phases later is this idea of like we're kind of all we're all catching on to ads. And we're all catching on to how they might stand out from the page design and stuff like that too. So I almost wonder if it's partly a UX problem, because you're scrolling through an article content or browsing somewhere and you can just like see this little block and it looks different. Like the text is different or something. And you're like, that's not it. I don't need that. And so that might be part of it versus like a video platform. We got HBO Max on Black Friday this year, and I've been noticing all these ways they layer in ads in a really subtle way. So you hit pause and it keeps it on your screen, but slides this little reminder over here. And I thought, what a smart way to do it, because I still feel confident as a user that you've saved my spot, that I can hit play right away. But now my interest is piqued on this ad that you have.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's kind of this interplay and transition happening from how we have been okay with things not looking consistent. Maybe our designs of our websites are getting more consistent in general, and ads are standing out even more as a result.
Yeah, I find websites are starting to get a little bit boring because I do think that people are relying too heavily on themes that are, pre-built themes. You see it a lot. I love Shopify, and I know that, we have a lot of clients on Shopify, and it's a great platform for startups and other brands getting up and running. I think you graduate from it, once you hit a certain point. But, the problem I have with it is that there are so many themes out there, and WooCommerce is the same thing. There's so many themes out there, and people don't spend enough time sort of modifying their theme. They just take it and pop it up there, and you look and you go, well, that's a Shopify site. As soon as I look at it, I go, oh, that's a Shopify site. And, nothing is better though than the Shopify checkout page. I'll tell you that right now. Shopify does a great job with the checkout page, and I'm not bashing Shopify. I like it. It's a good platform. We have a lot of clients on it, and a lot of them are on, and doing significant volume. But I just think that we're starting to get a little homogeneous in terms of what we're looking at on websites, and that may be part of the problem.
I think that is part of the problem, and I think part of it too is there's like people have asked me on some podcasts lately, like, what's AI going to do? When's it going to take your job? And one of the things that I've noticed so far, because I keep checking, I'm like, is it today? Is it tomorrow? I don't really know yet, but it should be soon. We'll all be sitting on the beach soon. But I think in the meantime, what I've noticed is when I say, hey, look at this page, or what are some best practices? No, I don't even say best. I choose not to say best practice. What should I do to improve my site?
Yeah.
It punches out the same list almost every time.
Yeah.
And I always think we're missing like the really important thing. The AI doesn't know the goals of the business. They're kind of the same for a lot of e-commerce companies, but still doesn't know. It certainly doesn't know the problems that people are having when they're on the site. So it doesn't know if I need to have a button above the fold or not, but it's telling me everyone should have a button above the fold.
Yeah.
And so it's a good starting place, just like a Shopify template. But if you don't really look deeply at how are people using my site, what are they noticing? What are they not noticing? You're just going to have it in the same format, and maybe they'll figure it out, or maybe they'll leave and not become a customer.
Yeah. I think the whole AI is going to take your job. They said the same thing about, marketing agencies, and it's going to take the job, and we haven't lost anybody yet. We do use AI, and we have for years, in different ways, and it helps enhance our job. We use it for content creation. We use it for data analytics. We use it for, all types of things, but I haven't gotten rid of a person yet because of it. We don't use it for images because I think those images are horrible. We use it for video editing. We use it for, I think AI as a tool gets you about 60% of where you need to be, but it's never going to get you across the finish line. And I don't see that happening. And I do think that you're right. It does the same thing over and over again. If I said to it, hey, take this website and analyze it, tell me what I need to do to make it better, it would give me back certain things. We do notice that because we do have this tool that we use to analyze results for ads. And one tool that we started using used to just give us the same stuff. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do this. Like, that's not what we're asking you to do. I'm asking you to analyze it. And we found this other tool, which just rips everything apart and comes back with all these great messages about what we're supposed to be doing with these ads and what the information is telling us. But still, all that did was, instead of having a person go back and look at 3 or 4 years worth of data, compile it in spreadsheets and do that, it did it in, less than a minute. And then that person still has to make decisions. That person still has to look at it and create new ads from it and change the direction, change the messaging, or whatever it is. So I don't think that AI is going to make me get rid of that person. It just made that person a little bit more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that my provocative statement of us being on the beach was a good conversation starter. I find that you get all or nothing right now. You get a lot of people who are like, there'll be no more work. They'll be driving around doing our vacuuming for us. And then, I think we've seen a lot of things in history, like, the books, like, oh no, everyone's going to change how they behave in the world because of reading. Right. And so I think there's a lot of moments where things change a lot, but we are a very adaptive species, and we'll do more or do something differently with it.
Yeah, computers were supposed to, kill jobs back in the 80s and 90s, and robots were going to just kill warehouse jobs, and Amazon was putting robots in, and everybody was going to get fired because the robots could do the job, but that never happened. So, they can't get enough people, and because of that, they charge you a surcharge at the holidays because they can't staff their warehouses. But so it never really comes to fruition. So I don't think I don't think we're all gonna, not have a purpose anymore. But I do think that there's a lot of fun things with AI. I mean, it certainly helps us brainstorm. It certainly helps us do a lot of things, because sometimes you get, at least for us, we've got all these clients and all these different channels of business, and you get stale. You're sitting there going, oh, what am I going to say this, what's the next set of ads? And we do a lot of brainstorming with AI, which I love. I think that it comes up with some really wild things, but especially if you tell it, come up with some really wild things. So it can be a lot of fun.
It's also very overly empathetic. So I've noticed that, I don't know, I've been picking up some more of the tools lately, and I've noticed how often it's validating of what you're doing. Oh, you're doing something very smart.
Yeah, yeah.
Or what a fun idea. And so it's not 100%. But I have been trying it for all kinds of things. We're going on a vacation to Costa Rica, and it was fun to prompt it to see what it came up with. And then we threw all of the ideas away from it and kind of like pick something else up. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of changes soon with it, but I don't think it's going to dramatically change the day to day.
No, I watched a guy made a video about, and he's running it as an ad for people to come and use his service. But he said, watch how fast I can make a website using AI. And he did it. And it was just and even the people, it wasn't just me saying it, because I was thinking it, but all these other people were making comments going, this is the worst website I ever saw. This is a piece of garbage. I could have done this in 5 minutes. And I'm thinking, thank God somebody else saw that, because I thought this was just, garbage. And just because it's AI doesn't mean that you have to promote it and say, oh, this is going to be great. I write emails with AI. Great. So you're inauthentic, because you don't know who your customer is. So you're just writing emails with AI. Now, granted, we write emails with AI, but we tweak them. They get you 60% of the way there. We don't say, oh, it spit it out, let's just run with that. No, you can't.
I think AI has been really fun to check tone of voice on. Like, what's the tone of voice of this message, or how do you interpret that? So I think there's some fun stuff in there. But yeah, I think I feel like we're coming to this place, to your point about Shopify kind of making all the sites looking the same, except for brands that choose to use the tool and then do more with it.
Sure.
I think we're seeing a lot of that probably coming with AI, where a lot of brands are going to be using images and videos, and they're going to start looking more and more alike, rather than building a more authentic voice and standing out from the crowd that's all doing it.
Yeah. Everybody was there was big discussions on LinkedIn over the holidays, or before the holidays, actually, because Coca-Cola did that video ad with the truck going through the town, and everybody was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this with AI. It's horrible. And I said, well, if you think about it, it actually looks really good. And if you think about it, Coca-Cola's always done some sort of a animation. They've not always. So this is just an extension of the animation. So it fits the brand, and it works. Now, if some of people that use AI to make images for their posts, that they look totally fake, they're ridiculously bad, and that's just not good. Can you use AI to clean up an image? Absolutely. We do that all the time. People, clients will give us these images, especially old images, because they want to do some retro thing. Yeah, you can use AI to clean it up. We use AI to edit videos and do it quickly. It's great for that. Do I want to create an entire video using it? No. Do we use it for voiceover? I think some of the voiceover has been pretty good. So we have done that. But as far as like building ads and just there's a product out there actually, and they advertise like heck especially for Shopify sites, where you can plug this product in and it will use AI and just run ads for you on Meta. And we've seen 3 or 4 clients that have done it. And then we've had to go in and they've killed it after about 30 or 60 days because it's totally worthless. But the problem becomes, even when you delete it, it leaves this code on there so that their pixel actually takes over. And so you're not using the meta pixel anymore, and it messes up your ads. So we've had to go in and clean it up, and now we know how to do it rapidly. But the first one that we encountered, it took us, I think, 2 weeks to find the embedded code that it left behind to kill it. So, but it's just a terrible, terrible platform. And I think there's so many people out there that think that AI is just the next big game changer. So they're just creating garbage and selling it, and people are going, "Oh, well, it's AI. Let me try it." So anyway.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of businesses, a lot of startups coming up with like AI in the name or in the tagline. But if you look, under the hood a little bit, they're not building their own language models. They're just reusing the same big ones that are out there already. So
Yeah,
I think be skeptical of it and try it on a platform where it won't impact everything else you're doing.
yeah. Got a question about size of companies that you work with. What are the size of companies that you work with? Is it large, small?
I've kind of done it all, actually. So the cool thing about Zero and my past in UX research is this skill set can be applied in a lot of settings. So we really look for the amount of traffic that a company has. Typically 100,000 visitors a month and above is going to give you the ability to test anywhere. And we are also looking for companies wanting to grow. So
Right.
it comes down to, if you're running ads and you're trying to bring people to your site, you get enough people to your site, you should be handling the other side of the equation and doing Zero.
So you think 100,000 site visits a month is probably a good base.
It's a good base. I think anyone getting over 5,000 or 10,000 visits a month should be doing audits and really examining their conversion rate. You can start doing testing around 30 to 40,000, but you are more limited in what you can test. And then once you're at 100,000, you literally could test anything on your site and you'll be able to get a read on did it have an impact or not.
Good. So that answers that question for someone. So when you say that you do a scientific approach, like what are scientific methods in UX?
Yeah, great question. So we start everything with a hypothesis. So we're not just trying something like a red button versus blue button, but we say, if we change this, then this will happen. And so an important science foundation is that you're not just like randomly looking for data and trying to make meaning from it, but you're defining your experiment up front. So then you know how much you're measuring, how many visits you're going to have, what pages are going to run, what data you're looking at, and then you're going to go through that plan and execute on it. So I think a lot of companies will test things out by just making a switch and then kind of guessing at what it might mean if they look at their data. We also do split tests or A/B tests. So all the environmental factors are the same. The weather outside is the same, like 50-50. Half the people will see one version, half will see the other. We're controlling for seasonality. We're controlling for, other things that might go on, like a discount you're running or something else. And that gives us the chance to compare truly, did more people click on the add to cart button because we changed the product carousel to include a video, or did fewer people do that and ultimately fewer people bought? So we control the environment, we define upfront what the hypothesis is and what outcome we would be looking for. And then we really are patient. So we're not running a test for one day. We're running to get at least 2 weeks of data plus the sample size we need to make sure we're not just making decisions without enough confidence in the data.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think? So, sorry, I'm itchy. I think it's because I'm in Maryland, and we just had snow for the first time a big snow for the first time in years. We had like almost a foot of snow, and for some reason everything is getting dry. Like the whole house is getting dry, and I'm getting itchy. But anyway,
Same thing here in Texas, though. We are below freezing for the first time this week, which is
are
our
you really?
snowfall.
Really?
And yeah, it changes the environment, right? To have the heater kick on and all the other things.
You don't get snow though, do you? Or-
Very rarely. I'm in Austin. I think folks up in Dallas will get a dusting every year. We've made the news, I think, for some big freezes we've had over the last 5 years. But I've nothing like when I lived in Boston.
Oh yeah.
Nothing left made me leave the Northeast. No offense to anyone listening, but I've discovered when we got a foot of snow every Wednesday for 4 weeks in a row, that on the fourth week, when I had to go up a flight of stairs to shovel the snow to the top of the pile, that snow was not for me. And something I hear a lot of entrepreneurs reflect on is, what is success to you? And for success to me is never having to shovel snow again.
Oh, is that right? I love snow. I love shoveling snow. I look forward to it. I get out.
I'll call you if we get snow in Austin.
Yeah, I'll come and do it. We moved into this house that we're in now about I think 7 years ago, and the driveway was a lot bigger than we had before. So I bought a snowblower, and never haven't used it ever since we've been here. This is the first time. And
Today's the day. Did you get to use it?
Yesterday, yeah, it was the first
Yeah.
time. So we were. I was ecstatic. I loved it. And then we got more snow overnight. Not enough to use the snowblower, but I was out there shoveling this morning at 6 o'clock. So, but I loved it. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. I grew up in New York, and for me, it's sort of,
And I think that's why every entrepreneur and business person should reflect on their own
That's
definition of success.
I know a lot of people who dread snow. They all dread snow. We're getting close to the time, but I have one more question. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people make? I mean, there's got to be some common threads of mistakes that people make in the world of user experience and conversion rate optimization.
I mean, the biggest thing is they're not looking at it. Like, that is just the first thing, right? I mean, we could take a look at the internet and see how many sites are running ads, but don't have a structured either UX evaluation program or conversion rate optimization program. And so they're just guessing and taking risk at their business revenue by saying like, oh, I like the way it looks. So that to me is the number one issue that I see companies make, is that they're not looking at the data. They don't realize to be curious about the placement of things, the wording of things, the journey across the site. And it can be a lot, right? We spend lots and lots of time doing it. And it can be hard if you don't have a team of 5 or 6 people to dedicate to it to really get it right. But I think the number one issue is not doing it. And then from there, I think it's making decisions too fast. Like, if you didn't get enough data, you just kind of liked the way it looked, or making decisions that are counter to what's best interest for the company. So sometimes we'll run a test. It'll clearly show a revenue increase. It'll be clearly addressing a problem a customer has, but someone just doesn't really like it. And so those are the moments where we're like, let's really dig in and understand why you didn't like it, why your intuition didn't match the data that we actually got, and try to come to a resolution that's data-driven, or maybe run some more experiments to help fuel that decision. So I think really letting go of your ego, wanting to lose. Like, I love when a test loses. Those are my best ones. And the idea that you have to get everything right, and if you measure it, it's scary that you might be wrong, is a tough thing for any business person. But it can particularly be that case in UX, because a lot of UX professionals are trained on best practices. They haven't had the access to the data that we have as our company and as other CRO agencies do. And so being willing to be wrong and learn something along the way.
I think that's a good point. Willing to be wrong. I don't know how you couldn't look at your conversion rate because it's like a key metric, and you're looking at it almost every day, and you think, um, how am I going to get this up? How am I going to get this up? Because I remember we had when we were doing we owned a beauty brand. We founded a beauty brand many years ago. Like God, it's probably 20 years ago now that we founded it, and we were doing a lot of manual conversion rate
Mm.
calculations back then, and long-term value and things like that. And it used to kill me that I think we had 5.5% conversion rate constantly. And I was like, man, we're spending all this money getting ads, we're spending all this money getting traffic, how come we can't push this? Like, what is the problem? And you're trying to get rid of the garbage traffic, you're trying to get rid of the fake traffic. And at the time, it was really bad. There was a lot of fake traffic out, and but still, just trying to push it up. Because if you just didn't spend any more money and you pushed your conversion rate up by 1%, the amount of revenue you got and profitability was phenomenal. So I don't know how anybody could not be looking at their conversion rate and wanting to go higher.
And I always think about how like you can run just a handful of experiments and then benefit your business like into the future versus like every ad you're running, you're doing it kind of more in not necessarily short term, but you're doing it with this immediacy. And so if you balance your investment on both sides, it doesn't have to be equal, but if you're thinking about both sides, if think about your full future of all ads, SEO effort, all those things just paying off more because you've increased that conversion rate. So I think it's just a piece of the puzzle, or like the flip side of what is the math of a conversion rate? Like how many people are coming to your site is just one piece of it. So you have to make sure you're thinking about both sides of the equation.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's true. We do it with ads every day. I mean, we look at ads and think, my God, it's not working. We need to change the ad, fix the ad, change the ad, fix the ad, do an A/B tests and things like that. I mean, so all the ad platforms today have some really good tools in there for evaluating, but some of them are pretty generic. But same thing with television. But anyway, we're close to the end. We've got about 2 minutes left. Any parting words for anybody? How can people get in touch with you? We'll put your website and all your links down in the description of the show. But just let everybody know, how they can get in touch with you.
Experimentzone.com. But I think the offer I love to end every show with is to find me on LinkedIn and to send me a note to have a virtual coffee. I had a moment early on in my career where I was an introvert who decided to be extroverted and have 100 coffees and put myself out there. And I met so many people and ultimately found someone who was doing what I wanted to do next. And I would never have met her without having coffees. So my last invitation is message me for a coffee. Maybe I can help you today, but maybe I can introduce you to some other people and just, fuel your career, fuel your curiosity. And just be connected.
Yeah, that's great. So LinkedIn, they can find you, experimentzone.com, and I guess they can find experimentzone.com on social too, right?
Yeah, you can find us on social. And we launched a podcast in 2024, the Experiment Zone podcast. So If you want to hear more of me, you can always listen to me there too.
Okay, that's great. So yeah, we're just about out of time. I appreciate everybody tuning in. And it was great having you. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk about what you're doing. And I find it interesting. I always have. And I think it's, like I said in the opening, it's sort of an often overlooked area, especially for startups and young entrepreneurs. They think they don't have to pay attention to it till they get bigger. But when you start paying attention to it in the early stages, it pays off all the way through, in my opinion, what I've found. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody else for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.